Hi everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Create, and we're going to work on page 4 and 5 of our Ephemera Queen mini album, and I've got it laid out here so that I've got my A-sides showing at the moment. So this is going to be a mirror image of each other. This is going to be pretty straightforward, and I'm using my favorite pattern in the collection. This rose pattern is pretty much my favorite. This is, and I'm going to verify this, but pretty sure this is from the, I'm sorry, I got to shuffle some papers around, 12 by 12 collection. So this is from the 12 by 12 collection. This is a pattern in solid. And then when I trimmed these down for the 8-inch panel here, you're going to wind up with some scrap, and I used the scrap from the trim to cover one of the flaps. So this is also from the 12 by 12. It's just the flip side. Okay, so we are going to start with page 4. And I gotta think about, yeah, this is how I want it. Page 4 and 5, both of them are the same. You're gonna have a 4.5 by 8-inch panel. You're going to score 1/2 inch on the 4.5-inch side. It's going to get attached toward the spine on page 4 and 5. So I'm going to dry fit that real fast. It looks like I need to, whoops, I'm glad I looked. Make sure your pocket is going left to right, which it wasn't. So it's a good thing I looked. And I'm just dry fitting to make sure it's going to fit on the page. Looks good. Let's go ahead and get it in. Again, 4.5 by 8 for the panel that goes on the right-hand side of page 4. Ah! Shoot. I felt it lift up and shift just as I was getting ready to push it into place. So I'm lifting it up, and I've talked about this in lots of videos, but I'm going to say it again. If you're trying to, if you've put something down with tape and you haven't burnished it, if you lift and tug at an angle, you can pull it up without tearing your paper. Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. So I'm going to try that again. There we go. So there it is. And it's in straight, so I'm happy with that. Okay. The next thing we have are these two flaps. And this is 3.5 by 6.5. 3.5 by 6.5. And it's going to get installed on the upper left-hand corner. Okay, so that's going to lift up. And then the lower one, I was going to do 2 6.5, but since I have this paper left over from the top, I'm going to go ahead and trim this panel down. So it is going to be 4.5. Oh, is that right? 4.5? Yeah, 4.5 by 3.5. Let me double check. Double. Yeah. Okay, so this is going to be 4.5 by 3.5. You're going to score 1/2 inch on the 4.5-inch side, and then your little scrap that was left over. Actually, I can trim that down a little bit now. Your scrap that's left over from trimming out this piece is going to work perfectly over here. You'll actually have some excess. So let me see, 4.5. Let's see how that looks. Perfect. Okay. Good, good. The other option would have been to have two of these panels be the same size and then just color block the top half. But I decided to go this route. I think this goes here and this goes here. Yeah. Okay, so the reason I say this goes here and there is what I did is I took that 12 by 12 and I cut the continuous pattern in half, so they're going to lay side by side. So I'm just double checking that that's the orientation. Looks good. And now we're ready to start putting down. Oops, no, we're not. We have one more flap to attach, and again, 4.5 by 3.5. Score a 1/2 inch on the 4.5 inch side, and it's going to be installed on the lower left-hand corner of this pocket page, page 4. There we go. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and start attaching our designer paper. I'm going to get a contrast sheet out so that I can better see the edge of the flap. This pattern's so pretty. It is directional. There's some words in the background, so be mindful of that. Again, this is from the 12 by 12 collection pack. Okay, beautiful. Okay, now we're going to do the A side of the small flap. This is from the Patterns and Solids collection pack. So it is a 12 by 12 sheet, but it's from the Patterns and Solids. And if you're familiar with Graphic 45, you know that's not the collection pack, right? I hope everybody's doing well. It's been a while. My next album following this one is going to be Winter Tales, and I started looking at that last night. So I'm excited about that project. Pretty cool collection. And I haven't decided what size yet, but I have decided that I am going to do it on white cardstock. If you guys want to get ready for that. A little heavy on the glue here. There we go. Okay, so it's coming right along. And then the last element is I'm going to use this stripe, and I actually trimmed this out from, I'm going to verify that. I believe it's from the 8x8 collection pack. I really like this stripe, and I just don't feel like there's enough of it. So in a lot of cases where I might have actually put more stripe on the inside, I'm just using an accent and then doing some additional color blocking. Yes, this is definitely from the 8x8. Here's the 12 by 12 collection pack. So in this case, I used strip from the 8x8 collection pack, and it's going to be the same on both sides. Okay, I'm just verifying that that looks lovely, that it fits nicely, and it does. And so what I'm doing is I've got my flange from the hinge up here and here, and I'm just pressing it right against that spot, right? And it's going to get installed right there, not overlapping it, just right next to it. But the important thing is if you make yours wider, and that's okay too. I should tell you how wide this is. I think it's a 1/2 inch. Yeah, this is a 1/2 inch wide. If you decide to make yours wider, all we're really trying to achieve here is that this gap is filled with some pattern. That's all we're trying to achieve. So if you want to make it wider, that's fine. But like I said, I don't feel like I have enough of this pattern, so I'm doing little tricks to try to get it to stretch. Ah. Okay, and now I forgot I should have a magnet here, but I'm going to solve that by placing it on this side. But it should have been on the top. It's okay. No big deal. I'm out of practice. It's amazing. I'm just taking a few days off and you forget all your tricks. Okay, so there's a magnet on the back side, and I'll find the I'll locate the opposing magnet this way. There we go. There we go. Okay, so that's done. And now we need magnets here. And I don't know what I'm doing here. I haven't designed the B-side yet. So I don't know if I'm going to do any color blocking. So I'm going to pencil a note here to myself so that I don't cover this without putting a magnet somewhere. But I don't know what my color blocking is going to be yet, so I'm not really ready to place the magnet in terms of where it's going to be located. So for right now, I think that's our A side, and I'm ready to shift this over, and we'll do the A side on page 5. And you may ask yourself, why does she do it this way? Why doesn't she just go ahead and finish it? Well, part of it is I want to get all my trimmed out papers laid in so that I don't accidentally repurpose them, which has been known to happen. And then you wind up redesigning your patterns. So I want to get my loose papers laid down, but also I want all the covers to be sort of the best patterns, right? So on the end, also solid pieces like this. So on the inside, I can do some color blocking and switch up my patterns a little bit better. But when you open your book and you see that 2-page spread, I want the best of the patterns to be on the A side. So that's why I do it this way. And like I said, when you're doing a whole album, you're shuffling around a lot of paper. It's very easy to, even though I put them in Ziplocs, it's still easy to repurpose something. So I get my A sides in, and then I come back and do my B sides. So that is why I do it that way. And that's a good practice actually for you to follow when doing your own albums. Because even though, like I said, even though I put these in individual Ziploc bags by page, it still happens that I mess something up and repurpose it. That's another reason why I like to design my covers early, because the cover of an 8x8 album is 8.5 by 8.5. So you can't use your 8x8 patterns. You have to use your papers from the 12x12 collection pack. So you need to make sure you set those aside early on. Otherwise, you are forced into color blocking on your cover. And you may want that, but if you don't set aside those papers early on, you don't have a choice. Okay, I'm going to tell you what that size is. This is 4.5 by 8. 4.5 by 8. You're going to score 1/2 inch on the 4.5 inch side, and I can see that it's hanging off the edge of my sheet just barely. So I'm going to take my fancy box cutter and trim that off real quick by hand. It's very minor, but when you have little tabs hanging off, they get stuck on things, so it's an opportunity for your page to get torn. There you go. When you're doing that, be careful because this is a pocket page and you don't want to cut your pocket open. Okay, that's all done. Now we have the top flap, which is 3.5 by 6.5. 3.5 by 6.5. You're going to score 1/2 inch on the 6.5 inch side. We're going to apply it to the upper right-hand corner. Okay, and then we're going to trim this piece out. I got to double check my size. The lower piece is going to be 4.5 by 3.5. So 3.5 by 4.5. Hinge on the 4.5 inch side. You're going to score 1/2 inch. And it's going to be applied to the lower right hand corner of the pocket page. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and add these magnets. Since I know I don't think I want to do any color blocking here. It's too small, but we'll see. We need magnets either way. So I'm going to put it on the B side. I'm using 5/8 inch tape, which is not necessary, but I like to put tape, some tape over the magnet to soften the edges. If you don't want to use score tape, you can use, even masking tape, but I like to put something there. It really does help soften the edges of the magnet. That's the other reason why, in general, if I can put the magnet on the B side, that's where I want to put it. If I can. It doesn't always work out that way. And that way you don't have to worry about masking a bump on the cover. Now, the other thing to think about in terms of magnet placement is if you can place your magnet behind a busy pattern, the pattern will help mask any ridge that's exposed as well. So the simpler the pattern, the more obvious the magnet's going to be. Okay, that's done. Let's get our contrast sheet in here. And we can start laying down our papers. And again, I'm going to write myself a note on the B side that I need to add a magnet, but I'm not going to do it right now. The next time we get together, after I get my act together and get my B sides trimmed out, we'll place the magnet. But I like to write myself a note because taking a break, sometimes I'll forget. And you guys have seen me do that. There's always a workaround, but it's best if you get it where you intended. I've pre-inked my edges, so you guys haven't seen me do that, but I just want to let you know I am using Powder Puff in Mahogany, which is this, and I love this color. Typically, they change their colors out pretty frequently, but basically I just go for the darkest brown that they have. I don't distress into my page, And what I mean by that is the ink doesn't come into the pattern. So I can use a very dark brown. If you like to distress into your pattern, I would recommend going a little lighter. And I'll show you what I mean. So this is what I do when I ink. I basically just run it off to knock off the white core, and then I might do a little tip on the corner here. That's it. So some people like to distress in quite a bit, and I like that look too. It's just not for me. And the more you distress into the pattern, the lighter you need to go. Otherwise, it's just going to overwhelm your paper. Especially on pinks and yellows. It's very, distressing into a pink or a yellow is, it's very easy to overdo it. And there's a lot of both of those colors here. Okay, and I think I have to trim this one too, yeah. Oops. You'll see that I have two powder puffs going at the same time. When you first get one, it is so juicy, it's actually easy to over ink. So as one's drying out, I introduce a new one, and then I'll take the ink from the new one and press on the old one and continue to use the old one for a little while until I've gotten some of the ink out of the new one and it's not so juicy I can use it without making a mess. Just so you know, that's what I do. That's what I'm doing. I can see I didn't get a straight edge here, so I'm going to straighten that up because that's going to bug me with my box cutter and a ruler as soon as I find one. There we go. I must have torqued it in the paper trimmer. I didn't feel it, but I must have. Still too. Not wanting to cut, so I'm just going to use some scissors. There we go. Better. More better. Okay, so we're done with this until oh no, we're not. We still got a strip to put in. Okay, like I said before, we're just laying this in and we're butting it right up against the hinge on the two right hand flaps. Then I'm going to write myself a little note about the magnet. Take a break, go upload this video, and then get my B-sides ready for you guys. Here we go. Lovely. So that is page 5. Let's pull in page 4. There we go. Isn't that pretty? I'll probably do something here with either chipboard or die cuts or something. The other thing is you can leave it blank. This is perfect for a 3x3. Okay. All right. So next time we get together, we'll place the magnets on these two panels and decorate the inside, the B-sides. And that's it for page 4 and 5, at least for now. I'll be back soon, guys. Hey everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Crate. We're working on Ephemera Queen and we're on page 4 and 5. And we're going to do these side by side because they are mirror images of each other. So let's get started on page 4. I'm going to scoot that over a little bit. So this is what I've chosen to go on the inside of this top flap. This is a pattern in solid and this is from the 8x8 collection pack. And what I've done, you'll see I've done the same thing on page 5. So I took this 8x8 and trimmed it, cut it in half first, and then I went ahead and scaled it down just a little bit more by trimming off a little bit of the top and the side that had the wide band to fit on the panel. So that's where this came from. And I actually trimmed a little bit off 3 of the 4 sides after I had split it straight in half. And that is going to get installed here. And that is going to work out just perfect. It's different, different. Whoops. Even though I put myself a note, I did it anyway. We need to add a magnet. Now, I didn't do this earlier because I wasn't sure if I was going to do any color blocking here, and we are not. So we can place the magnet right here in the center. I don't have to worry about it being exposed. I'm going to have to set this aside because it has to be completely dry before I close it to find the other magnet. So while that's sitting aside and drying, let's go ahead and look at page 5 and let's get that magnet put in before I make the same mistake again. Okay. I don't know why that's colored black, but I somehow got some black ink on that, so I'm going to get a different magnet. Okay, here we go. All right, now we can find the mate. And there we go. All right, we'll go ahead and work on page 5 while we're waiting for page 4 to dry. So this is going to go here, just like so. Okay, there we go. Now this is going to go here. I'm going to pause that while the air is running. Okay, I'm back and the air is off. So we're still on page 5 and we're just going to do the second half here. Hope everybody's doing well. Been kind of a long day recording, so I feel like I'm being kind of quiet. When I break it up, I think I'm a little more chatty. But winding down, I think it's after 9 o'clock here. It's been one of those marathon crafting days. Okay, now I'm going to stop here and go back to page 4. And while I was away, this dried enough that I could go ahead and add my second magnet. So that's done. So now we can start laying down the paper here. And again, it's just the same as page, it's just a mirror of page 5. Okay. Okay, so that's done. Okay, now we can go back. That's my insert popping out. And we can start lining the inside. I can't remember if yeah, 8x8 and patterns and solids. And then on the inside on the other flaps where all of these patterns are coming from the patterns and solids collection pack. It looks like I need to trim this just a little bit. Here it is. Let's see. Is that going to work? Yeah. Okay. So when I laid this down, I could see that it was narrower on one side than the other. So I actually wound up cutting at a very slight angle so that I could get it visually to look more centered. So that's probably because this strip didn't go in perfectly straight. That is the challenge with color blocking, but I do think it's worth the effort. But there is a lot of check, check, and recheck. And that looks pretty darn good. You'd never know that that's not perfectly a perfect rectangle, but it's not. So I say this all the time, but I'll say it again. That's why I do not give a cut list for the designer paper. I really think it's essential to test and trim, test and trim. If you want to have, that consistent look. You can't rely on all your paper just going down in a perfect right angle. And if you test and trim, that's your opportunity to shore things up. Okay, I'm going to turn this around and we're going to get this last piece in right here. Okay, and that is it for page 4. Now we'll finish up page 5. So a moment ago we did the inside of this panel. Now we'll do these, same thing. Whoops. My glue fell over. Oh, that looks good. Okay. Okay. I'll move that aside. So there is page 4 and 5, side by side. Actually, this goes like this. And I'll do some embellishing, but this is it for the designer paper. The rest of it will be either die cuts or chipboard pieces that I add to further embellish these. We'll probably do something a little bit here. Not sure what yet. Okay, that's it for now. Back soon.